The NFL draft is filled with plenty of busts, whether that be Brady Quinn of the Cleveland Browns, Dan McGuire of the Seattle Seahawks, or of course, Matt Leinart of the Arizona Cardinals. While these guys are considered NFL busts, the one thing that these players did not do, they did not have any off-the-field problems, and for the most part, they worked hard. It was just that they struggled to find any sort of success at the NFL level. In this video, I'm going to go over 5 different NFL quarterbacks who deliberately or unintentionally sabotage their own careers. Our first story begins at Texas A&M during the 2013 college football season. Heisman Trophy winner Johnny Manziel was coming off a 2012 season in which he had been handed the 2012 Heisman Trophy Award. He was the first freshman to win the award ever. Manziel's freshman season was one of the best by a freshman quarterback ever in league history at the time. Manziel would combine for over 30,000 yards, scoring 26 touchdowns, rushing for an additional 1,000 yards on the ground to go with an additional 14 touchdowns. With the help of future Seahawks running back Christine Michael and, of course, future Hall of Famer Mike Evans, Manziel and the three would create one of the best and most dynamic offenses in college football that year. Texas A&M would finish the year at 11-2, and they would win the Cotton Bowl in a massive blowout over Oklahoma. Manziel would win the game's MVP as he combined for 2 touchdowns on the ground, along with throwing for 2 touchdowns through the air. The next season, Manziel and A&M would go 9-4. They would have a comeback victory over Duke in the Chick-fil-A Bowl, with that being Manziel's final game as a member of the Aggies. Manziel that season would finish the year throwing for over 4,100 yards, going with 37 touchdowns with 13 picks. Manziel would declare for the 2014 NFL Draft after winning the Chick-fil-A Bowl. Manziel's MVP honors, along with his career statistics at Texas A&M, made him an interesting prospect. Manziel's on the field could not be argued. He was an amazing quarterback on the field. However, off the field, he had several problems. He would be kicked out of fraternity at Texas University in 2013. He also had a partying issue where instead of watching film, he would regularly be out partying. He also had the autograph signing scandal, which got him suspended for half of a game, and he was ejected from the Manning Passing Academy. Rather than taking responsibility for missing the meetings at the Manning Passing Academy, he would instead blame future Bengals quarterback A.J. McCarron, who was the current starter at Alabama, for not waking him up. Upon being told by Manziel that McCarron had not woken him up for the meeting, the media would begin to dogpile on A.J. McCarron. McCarron would suffer the blowback, and this caused another bit of controversy on Manziel's legacy. A.J. McCarron would actually tell this story on a podcast a decade later. When you combine the fact that Johnny Manziel, while a good player, did have a lot of off-the-field problems, you understand why a bunch of teams had a lot of issues with potentially drafting him. A lot of teams full out took him off their draft board due to the fact they were worried about his working personality. Analysts had no idea what to think of Johnny Manziel. You had some analysts who were projecting him as an early first-round pick. This included Mel Kiper, who at one point projected Manziel as the first overall pick, but would later drop him down to the 8th overall pick.
And I haven't heard Teddy Bridgewater, and I haven't heard Johnny Manziel. I'm guessing one of the two is your number one. Who does Houston take?
I'm going to go with Johnny Manziel, and I'm going to say Johnny Manziel for this reason. When you talk to people in the league, I get a consensus on Manziel that I don't get with Bortles or Bridgewater. A consensus that Manziel at worst is going 5. He's going in the top 5 somewhere. And this is a guy, if teams are thinking about him at 5 or 7, hey, what's wrong with number 1?
You then had quarterback Chris Sims, a former QB who had played at the NFL level, who said Manziel was not even a first-round pick. One final analyst had an infamous warning for the team who would draft him. Merrill Hodge would even say that Johnny Manziel had bust written all over him. As the first night of the draft went on, Manziel would watch as player after player was selected before him. Manziel would eventually text Browns quarterback coach Darrell Logiant and tell him he wanted to team up with the Browns and destroy the league. This would prompt Cleveland to trade up for the 22nd overall pick with the Philadelphia Eagles.
With the 22nd pick in the 2014 NFL Draft, the Cleveland Browns select Johnny Manziel, quarterback, Texas A&M.
The Browns' selection of Johnny Manziel would send the city into a frenzy. Manziel's jersey would become the #1 jersey seller on NFL.com. He would also become one of the top fan favorites in terms of the league. Some controversy would occur, as immediately after being drafted, rather than studying film or meeting with the Browns, Manziel would be out partying with Drake. Members of the Browns organization would be alarmed as Manziel continued to party throughout the offseason. This is while being in a quarterback battle with quarterback Brian Hoyer. In his first preseason game, he would also flip off the fans in Washington. Manziel would ultimately lose the quarterback battle to Hoyer, and he wouldn't see much playing action during the first 3 months of his rookie season. Hoyer was actually pretty successful with the Browns, leading them to a 7-4 start, one of the best starts they had ever had in their franchise's history up to that point. Brian Hoyer would eventually regress, as the Browns would go down to 7-6. With the season on the line, along with their playoff host dwindling, they would decide to start Johnny Manziel against the division rival Cincinnati Bengals.
Pocket collapses, Manziel looking to run, and he is... Manziel's going to keep. Back to throw, looking, and it's going to be intercepted. Only only a four-man rush, 3rd and 5. Spinning around, throwing on the run. High for Jim Dre and incomplete.
Everybody gets introduced to this league and understands that it's a different deal.
A lot of time. Stepping up, in trouble, gets away, slings it end zone in traffic, intercepted.
Know that their hopes rise on someone playing well as he goes down again.
Manziel would finish his NFL starting debut going 10 for 18 with 80 yards, along with 2 interceptions, along with being sacked 3 times. The Browns were shut out 30-0 by the Bengals, and it would eliminate them from the playoffs unofficially. Manziel would start against the Carolina Panthers next week. However, a hamstring injury would cost him the rest of the season, and he would be replaced by Brian Hoyer. Manziel's rookie season was a complete disaster from his standpoint. He had struggled to compete as the Browns' starting quarterback. He went 0-2 as a starter while throwing for less than 300 yards, throwing for 2 picks and 0 touchdowns. During the offseason, Manziel would voluntarily submit himself into a rehab facility. In May of that year as well, Manziel would be involved in an incident at a golf tournament. It would involve him throwing a bottle at a heckler after he refused to sign an autograph. Police would be called, but no charges would be pressed. Despite the awful rookie campaign, the Browns still believed in Manziel to an extent. They would bring in veteran quarterback Josh McCown to try and act as a mentor for Manziel. On the field, Johnny Manziel would show massive improvement. He would throw for 7 touchdowns with 5 picks. The team would go 2-4 with him as the starting quarterback. While those were decent numbers, those were the best he would do in his NFL career. His 7 touchdowns in that season were the most he would ever throw as a quarterback in the NFL. While playing for the Browns, in October of 2015, while on the way back to Cleveland, Manziel and his girlfriend would be involved in a domestic dispute. Manziel and his girlfriend at the time were seen arguing on the side of the road. Manziel at the time had been drinking and was not given a DUI. While Manziel was never charged in the incident, it did cause a lot of controversy as the NFL was considering suspending Manziel for part of the season. Manziel's off-the-field problems would still continue into 2016. In January of that year, he would be pulled over by Ohio State troopers as his license plate was expired. He would be cited for that, and just a day later, he would show up in Vegas under disguise. While Manziel was in Las Vegas, the Browns were currently playing the Pittsburgh Steelers in their final game of the season back in Cleveland. Later that same month, Manziel would be involved in another domestic dispute with his girlfriend. It would result in the Dallas police responding, and it would eventually result in Johnny Manziel having to go to court and being summoned to a grand jury trial. This incident would be the final straw for the Cleveland Browns. Not only had Johnny Manziel not taken the NFL seriously, they'd also wasted a draft pick on him. He would be released from the Browns organization in March of that year once the NFL season started, and he would never sign with another NFL team again. On top of never playing in the NFL again, Manziel would be suspended for the first 4 games of the 2016 season due to violating the NFL's substance abuse policy. Manziel would never play football again at the NFL level. However, he did sign a few more contracts, one with the CFL and another with the AAF. Despite being considered one of the worst busts in NFL history, Johnny Manziel's story does have a happy ending. He was able to get himself clean after several years of dealing with drugs and alcohol addiction, and he now works as a college football analyst. Our second story begins in the 2000 season for college football at the University of Georgia. Quarterback Quincy Carter, a junior at Georgia, was coming off a year in which he had thrown for 1,500 yards, 6 touchdowns and 10 picks. Carter that year had missed multiple games down the stretch due to a shoulder injury. Despite the down season, Carter would shockingly declare for the 2001 NFL Draft. Besides being the starting quarterback at Georgia University, Carter had been selected in the second round of the MLB Draft by the Chicago Cubs as a center fielder. Despite decent stats in the minor league system for the Chicago Cubs, Quincy decided to stick with baseball full-time. Carter's decision to declare for the 2001 NFL Draft was seen as controversial. Mel Kiper at the time had Carter selected at just a 5th-round pick grade. After going unselected during the first round of the 2001 NFL Draft and then being passed over for quarterback Drew Brees, Carter wouldn't have to wait much longer to hear his name called.
With their first selection of the day at number 53 overall, the Cowboys have selected quarterback from Georgia, Quincy Carter.
The Cowboys shockingly used the 53rd overall pick in the 2001 draft to select Carter. Carter was not only seen as the future of the Cowboys, he was seen as the direct successor to quarterback Troy Aikman. Aikman, who had just retired after the end of the 2000 season, had retired after winning 3 Super Bowls for the team. Early on in his career, Quincy Carter would show flashes of potentially being the future franchise quarterback of the Cowboys. He would throw for 5 touchdowns and 7 picks as a rookie quarterback. However, he did miss a lot of time due to injuries, and he finished his rookie season with a 3-5 record. The following offseason, Carter would appear on HBO's Hard Knocks show. It would follow him as he battled quarterback Chad Hutchinson for the team's starting quarterback job. Carter would ultimately win the job that year, however an injury would cause him to miss more time as well. With the Cowboys having finished the 2002 season with a 5-11 record, they would sign head coach Bill Parcells to try and spark the team. This would include trying to spark Quincy Carter's career, which had stagnated up to this point. While he had shown flashes, he had not been able to sustain the flashes. To the shock of everybody, the Cowboys, who were at one point projected to go 6-10 that year, they would finish with a 10-6 record. They would make it to the playoffs for the first time since the 1999 season. Carter that year would progress, throwing for 3,300 yards, along with 17 touchdowns to 21 picks, and he would start every single game. Carter that season would also defeat the Philadelphia Eagles, who would go on to win the NFC East, and the Carolina Panthers, who would go on to play in the Super Bowl that year. The Cowboys' season would ultimately end in the 2003 wildcard round when they faced off against the Carolina Panthers. In the rematch, the Panthers would win the game 29-10. Carter struggled as he would throw a pick, but also rush for a touchdown. This would be Carter's last big moment in the NFL, as this was also the beginning of his downfall.
Today, as the Cowboys have released the fourth-year quarterback, a league source telling Fox that Carter had tested positive for cocaine.
It was a play that Cowboy fans weren't expecting.
I was pretty shocked. I couldn't believe they cut their number one quarterback.
I really didn't know what to think about it.
It's going to take time to adjust.
From sports bars to sports radio.
Quincy blew it. He had every opportunity to be the man.
The Cowboys' quarterback sack was the only thing fans wanted to talk about.
It's one thing if we're talking about it in New York, but it's the quarterback of the Cowboys in Dallas. Well, it kind of floors everybody and takes everybody for a ride.
After the drug scandal that tarnished the team in the mid-90s, clearly Cowboys owner Jerry Jones has decided the team can't and won't go down that road again.
Of course, if he came up positive, he needs to go.
Drugs really have no place in families and in sports and in society, for that matter.
I don't think there's a place in professional football for drugs.
They play in the house that Tom built, and Cowboy fans seem to agree that it's a tradition that has to be protected.
With analysts expecting another playoff run for the Cowboys in the 2004 season, and with Carter progressing in a Bill Parcells system, the sky was the limit for him. However, in August of 2004, Carter would test positive for a drug test, and he would be suspended from the NFL for 4 games. The Cowboys, instead of keeping him on the roster, would cut him almost immediately. Years down the line, Bill Parcells would discuss this moment in an interview with ESPN. He would talk about how he had a close relationship with Carter and how he couldn't save him. Parcells also mentioned during that same interview that it was mainly the pressure to succeed which drove Quincy Carter's downfall. The fact was, Carter couldn't handle the pressure of being seen as the franchise quarterback of the Cowboys. Years down the line, after his football career had long ended, Quincy Carter would do an interview and would discuss how pot had become a gateway drug for him. This would eventually lead to him trying cocaine in his NFL career to try and cope. The release of Carter in 2004 was the second time that the Cowboys had caught Carter testing positive for drugs. This time it was cocaine, and with that, the Cowboys were done. Unlike our story with Johnny Manziel, who never got a second chance at the NFL, Quincy Carter almost got a second chance immediately. He would sign a 1-year contract with the New York Jets to be the backup quarterback to Chad Pennington, and he would actually see meaningful playing time. He would help the Jets into the playoffs in the 2004 season as he went 2-1 as the team's starting quarterback while throwing 3 touchdowns. By the end of the 2004 season, things were looking up for Quincy Carter. However, all that would change once again. As the NFL playoffs were beginning, Quincy Carter was not on the Jets' 40-man roster and had entered a rehab program. After the 2004 season, the Jets would not re-sign Quincy Carter. He would bounce around the Arena Football League and the CFL. He would also receive a trial in 2008 with the Miami Dolphins but would not make the roster, and Quincy Carter would not play football again. He would have a few more encounters with the law. In 2007, he would be arrested for possession, and he would deal with a few other arrests over the years. The worst of Quincy's run-ins with the law would come in 2010 when he was arrested for battery on his girlfriend. In 2013, Quincy Carter would be arrested by law enforcement once again. This was after he allegedly threw a car seat at his girlfriend. In 2016, Quincy Carter would be arrested by law enforcement in Georgia. This was based on a 2009 warrant on possession of marijuana. Since his arrest in 2016, Quincy Carter has avoided being arrested by law enforcement. He now works as a sponsor in the Georgia area, and he also has a passing academy, along with being a mentor towards youth. Our third story begins in the 1998 college football season. Senior quarterback Cade McNown was having a solid season with UCLA. He would throw for 3,100 yards along with 25 touchdowns to 10 picks. UCLA that year would go 10-2 as they would lose in the Rose Bowl while winning their conference championship. After the 1998 college football season came to an end, Couch would declare for the 1999 NFL Draft. This draft class was extremely stacked at the quarterback position. Despite the 1999 NFL Draft being extremely stacked, McNown was projected by Mel Kiper as a future first-round pick. As the first round of the 1999 NFL Draft began, McNown would watch as 4 quarterbacks were taken before him. However, he wouldn't have to wait that long to hear his name called.
With the 12th
pick in the draft, the Chicago Bears select Cade McNown, quarterback, UCLA.
Almost immediately after being selected 12th overall by the Chicago Bears, McNown's ego would begin to show. Before he even took a snap at the NFL level, he would have an 11-day holdout at training camp with the Chicago Bears. This was due to the fact they could not agree on a contract. Eventually, he would sign a $22 million deal, though. Despite coming to agree on a contract, the 11-day holdout cost McNown several reps at the NFL level and also a chance to get acclimated to the scene. McNown's rookie campaign was rough for him. He would go 2-4 as the team's starting quarterback, while throwing for a hair over 1,500 yards, scoring with 8 touchdowns to 10 picks. While playing for the Bears, McNown was also battling a court case involving his time at UCLA. The case that McNown was involved with was a case which involved him illegally obtaining a handicapped parking sticker. McNown would actually be charged in this case. Rather than facing any jail time, he would be sentenced to 200 hours of community service, along with paying back over $1,000 in terms of damages. The 2000 season for Cade McNown was not much of an improvement over his 1999 season. He would throw 8 touchdowns to 9 picks to go along with over 1,600 yards, while going 1-8 as the team's starting quarterback. Throughout the time, he also drew the ire of the media and his teammates for how he spoke. While speaking with the media after a Week 3 loss to the New York Giants, the future NFC champions, Cade McNown would criticize his wide receivers, claiming that they were tired and that they were the fault of him overthrowing them. McNown would also target Bears fans, specifically saying that if they weren't happy with his performances, to stay at home and not attend the games. While he would make a public apology to Bears fans, this was after the front office had made him do so, he would also still be criticized by his teammates. His teammates hated McNown as he had a heavy ego, and every time things went wrong, he would either blame the coaching or his teammates.
McNown came bearing gifts. Not everybody kept them, but Donnie Abraham liked his. Cade threw behind Bobby Ingram on this play, but thanks to a clipping penalty, the Bucs were denied a touchdown and had to settle for a field goal.
As I scrambled out to the right, I saw Bobby as that guy came off him, and right as I was throwing it to Bobby, Bobby was looking to, what I thought he was looking to block right as I threw it.
But that's sure not the way it looked. McNown was 0 for 12 on 3rd down, and that included this costly fumble.
After the 2000 season came to an end, McNown was pretty much done in Chicago. He would lose out in the quarterback battle to future starter Jim Miller. Jim Miller would actually lead the Bears to a 13-3 record and a playoff appearance in his first year as the team's starter. Late in the 2001 preseason, the Bears would actually ship off Cade McNown to the Miami Dolphins in exchange for a Day 3 draft pick. The reason for McNown being shipped off had a lot to do with his attitude and ego at the time. McNown would never take a regular season snap again. He would spend 1 year with the Miami Dolphins before being sent to the San Francisco 49ers after being cut. He would spend 1 year in San Fran before being injured in the middle of the 2002 season and never playing professional football again. After being cut by the 49ers, no team wanted to take a shot at him. This was due to the fact that McNown's ego and also his personality was seen as bad for teams. He was seen as a culture killer. As of making this video, Cade McNown now works as a financer. Our fourth story is about an NFL athlete who had all the skills to succeed at the NFL level, though his work ethic was nothing. He had no work ethic, and he didn't even work towards his goal. In this story, we're going to be talking about an LSU quarterback we are all familiar with, Jamarcus Russell. Coming off a solid junior campaign in which he had thrown for over 3,000 yards along with winning Sugar Bowl MVP over Notre Dame and quarterback Brady Quinn, Russell was seen as one of the best quarterback prospects in the 2007 draft. Russell's arm was seen as one of the best in recent memory. He was also compared to longtime Broncos quarterback John Elway, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. Almost every single analyst who was scouting the 2007 draft had Russell going first overall to the Oakland Raiders. He was seen as the unanimous first overall pick.
With the first pick in the 2007 NFL Draft, the Oakland Raiders select quarterback Jamarcus Russell, LSU.
Jamarcus Russell was instantly an Oakland Raider as they would use the first overall pick on the LSU QB. Russell would not immediately play for the Raiders. Instead, he would decide to hold out for a massive contract. Russell's holdout with Oakland would last all the way until the regular season was about to begin. He would sign a 6-year contract worth $61 million with $32 million guaranteed with the Raiders. He wouldn't see much action during his NFL rookie season, as due to the fact he missed multiple snaps along with chances to learn the system, he was the backup to quarterback Josh McCown. Russell would have to wait until the final week of the 2007 season to make his NFL debut as a starter. He would face the playoff-bound San Diego Chargers.
Russell to throw, and it's a little screen, and it's intercepted. Russell under the gun, the ball is on the ground in the end zone. Coming in on,
and it's something the Chargers do very well.
Ooh.
Russell would finish his NFL debut completing 70% of his passes for over 200 yards and a touchdown, but he also had the ball turned over 3 times, 1 interception and 2 fumbles. Russell's second season in the NFL went a lot better than his first. He would throw for 2,300 yards along with 13 touchdowns to 8 picks, while going 5-10 as the team's starting quarterback. Russell would be given one final season to prove himself as the team's starting quarterback. This is after he beat both the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Houston Texans in the final 2 weeks of the season. Despite fans being optimistic that Russell would be able to build off his 2008 campaign, Russell would show up to training camp with over 290 pounds of weight. Around the same time that Jamarcus Russell showed up to training camp over 290 pounds, he was also not showing up to quarterback meetings. The quarterbacks would have to bribe him with McDonald's just to get him to show up. On a podcast during the 2020 pandemic, Bruce Gradkowski would tell this story to the media.
So, you know, Tuesdays are our days off, but not for the quarterback. You'd always go in, watch film, get a workout in, prepare.
This is great.
Prepare for who you're playing next. And Jamarcus would never come in on Tuesdays. So myself and Charlie Fry were the backups, and we took upon ourselves to try how can we get him to watch some film on Tuesday. So we bring some DVDs to his house, and to get to his house, so to him be up for this, we had to stop by Wendy's and pick up like 10 junior bacon cheeseburgers, a bunch of cheeseburgers, and he had a 100-inch flash screen TV in his room. And at this time in 2009, I mean, you know, 100-inch flash screen was insane. In the bedroom, we're all like kind of sitting there. We got the film on it.
Russell would go on to have one of the worst seasons by any quarterback in NFL history. He would go 2-7 as the Raiders' starting quarterback. He would complete less than 50% of his passes to go along with 3 touchdowns to 11 interceptions, and he would go 2-7 as the team's starting quarterback. After Oakland acquired future starter Jason Campbell in a trade with Washington, they would decide to release Jamarcus Russell from the team. Russell would be released in May of 2010, and while he did receive a trial offer with Washington later that year, he would not sign with the team. In July of 2010, Jamarcus Russell would be arrested by Oakland law enforcement for illegally obtaining codeine syrup. Russell would not be indicted for the codeine syrup, and in 2013 he would attempt an NFL comeback. He would receive trial offers from the Chicago Bears and the Baltimore Ravens, however neither team would sign him. In 2018, Jamarcus Russell was hired by Williamson High School, his alma mater, to be the team's QB coach. In 2024, Russell would be removed from the team as the QB coach. This was after he allegedly stole $74,000 in terms of donations from the school. Besides his off-the-field issues since 2010, Jamarcus Russell has also had his teammates come out and talk about his lack of work ethic.
Coach DiFilippo said, look, Jamarcus, we've got about 15, 20 plays that we want for this week. Here's a DVD for you. Tonight, I want you to watch these, okay? Because tomorrow, this is what we're going to go with the game plan. But we feel like these are the best for you and what your skill set can do. So you look at these plays, and then tomorrow, you tell me which ones you like, which ones you don't like. So Jamarcus is like, cool. He takes the DVD. So the next day they come to practice, come to the facility, say, hey, Jamarcus, hey, how's that DVD? Did you look at it? He's like, oh, coach, all the plays. I'm good. Whatever you want to run, let's do it. I like him. He said, okay, which ones you like? 5 of them? Do you like 6 of them? 10 of them? How much you like? Coach, whatever. I saw them. That we good. We ready to go. I can do them all. And Coach DiFilippo was kind of looking around and was like, it was a blank DVD. So he didn't watch the DVD, but yet he told everybody, oh, y'all watched it. I did. And that's when I think they kind of knew, like, uh-oh.
In our final story, let's see what happens when you combine both Johnny Manziel's story and Jamarcus Russell's story into one big story. We're going to be looking at quarterback Ryan Leaf. Our story begins in the 1997 college football season. Offensive Player of the Year in his conference, Ryan Leaf was coming off one of the best seasons by a Washington State QB in franchise history. He would throw for over 3,000 yards, going with 33 touchdowns to 10 picks. While they would lose in the Rose Bowl, Leaf would become one of the greatest Washington State QBs of all time. After the 1997 college football season came to an end, Ryan Leaf would declare for the 1998 NFL Draft. Instead of scheduling an interview with the Indianapolis Colts, who held the first overall pick, Leaf would decide to skip the interview out entirely. Prior to Leaf deciding to skip the interview with the Colts, up to that point, the organization was discussing on who they should take, whether it be Ryan Leaf or Peyton Manning. The reason why Ryan Leaf would skip out on the interview with the Colts, he hated the weather in Indianapolis and preferred wanting to play out in the LA weather. The Colts would ultimately decide to pick Peyton Manning with the first overall pick in the 1998 NFL Draft. This would leave Ryan Leaf to the San Diego Chargers.
The San Diego Chargers select quarterback, Washington State University, Ryan Leaf.
Almost instantly after being drafted by the Chargers, Leaf's character concerns would begin to show. He would take a trip out to Las Vegas with family to celebrate being drafted, and during his introductory press conference, he would begin to yawn and be unable to answer questions due to being exhausted from the trip. After an inconsistent offseason in which Ryan Leaf would flash his potential while not showing as much care and effort, Leaf would be named the starting quarterback for the Chargers. He would start out his career going 2-0 over both the Buffalo Bills and the Tennessee Titans. After his 2-0 start to the 1998 season, Ryan Leaf's NFL career would begin to fall off a cliff. In his third game of his career, he would complete one pass on 15 attempts for just 4 yards, he would have 5 turnovers that game, and would have one of the biggest meltdowns of the year.
Don't talk to me, all right? Knock it off!
I misdirected my anger after the Kansas City game. I was extremely disappointed in my performance, and I let it show.
He read the piece of paper, and then he crumpled it up and threw it back into his locker.
So sorry if that sounded kind of rehearsed.
After his infamous meltdown against the Chiefs, Ryan Leaf would be benched for part of the season. He would finish his rookie campaign throwing for 2 touchdowns and 15 picks while having a 3-6 record as the team's starting quarterback. An off-the-field incident would occur as Ryan Leaf would return to his alma mater at Washington State. During his bye week, instead of studying film with the other quarterbacks, Ryan Leaf would return to Washington State, his alma mater, and would create chaos. He would be kicked out of 2 bars along with a convenience store, along with allegedly pouring alcohol on a group of fans. Leaf's personality and character concerns would continue to show. In 1999, he would show up to camp overweight, and this led to him tearing his labrum and missing all of the 1999 season. The Chargers would go 8-8 without Leaf, however. The Chargers would decide to give Ryan Leaf one final season to try and prove himself as the team's potential franchise quarterback. In 2000, he would have his worst season yet. He would go 1-8 as the team's starting quarterback while throwing 11 touchdowns to 18 picks and playing absolutely abysmal. Leaf would be benched multiple times throughout the year, and they were done with him after that. The Chargers would release Leaf in March of 2000, and shortly after he would sign with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He would be signed to a 1-year contract to compete for a third-string quarterback position. At the conclusion of the 2001 preseason, Tampa Bay would decide to release Ryan Leaf from the team. After being released by Tampa Bay in September, Leaf would sign a 1-year contract with the Dallas Cowboys to be the backup quarterback to Quincy Carter. He would start a few games for Dallas and would be released at the start of the 2002 season. Leaf would get one final shot in the NFL as he would sign a 1-year contract with the Seattle Seahawks. However, instead of showing up to training camp, Leaf would never report to camp and he would be released from the Seahawks in July of 2002. Since Ryan Leaf's release from the Seahawks in 2002, several of his former teammates have come out and talked about how he had an ego and a personality which made him clash with locker room culture. After his NFL career came to an end, Leaf would briefly be a quarterback coach at the college football level. However, off the field, he would still deal with a lot of drama. He would be arrested several times over the years by law enforcement. He would even spend a few years in jail for robbery charges. Besides the robbery charges, Leaf would also be charged for drug possession. He would spend 2 years in a Texas jail before being released in 2014. In 2020, Ryan Leaf would have one more run-in with the law. He would receive a misdemeanor as a result of a domestic violence dispute that occurred in October of 2020. Since his 2020 arrest in that dispute, Ryan Leaf has been able to stay off law enforcement's radar. He has since become a guest speaker and a mental health advocate. He has discussed his story about how his NFL career during that time he was addicted to both drugs and alcohol, and how his career went into a spiral after that. As you can see in this video, every single one of these players had the potential and ability to succeed at the NFL level. However, they threw away their career and sabotaged it by either off-the-field problems or ego. With this video out of the way, I just want to say thank you so much for watching. I do have more videos planned to come out over the next few months, and I hope you enjoy waiting for them. I am very excited to show you what I have been working on these last few weeks. Every time I put out a video, I am hoping it is of the best quality. If you have any criticism or anything you want to see added, just let me know, and I will try and get to it. As I end every video, I just want to say thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a great day, and I hope you all stay cool.